Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today I'm going to be recapping episode 71 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. It was our first venture into the Shattered Teeth, so I'm very excited to talk about it today. So, let's get right into it. We start in the Shattered Teeth after emerging from the tree that Keyleth opened up for them. The party are in a dense forest. The trees here are black and white and they have a spiral to them. The fog here is very thick. Orm looks to see if he can see the ocean, but the ocean is nowhere in view. He also sees creatures watching them in the trees. Chetney smells the area. He smells a very strong earthy scent, as is expected in a place like this, and also smells hints of ocean. Orm can hear the waves crashing off in the distance. Imogen says that she can fly up and look around, but the party choose just to follow Orm toward the waves crashing, as it'll be a little bit safer. They won't give up their position to anything. Chetney is really taking in the area and eating a bit of moss. As the party walk, they all start to hear the crashing waves. They start to feel the ocean breeze as they get closer, and the tree line begins to thin out. Eventually, they come to a 150-foot drop-off cliff. There's a very small beach at the bottom. The party now realize they can only see about 200 feet around them due to this fog. Imogen expected this place to be more like Denlin's Closet. A bit more vacation-y, but not so much. They remember they're looking for a person named Girona. Orm looks around for anything dangerous, but with the limited field of view, it's difficult, and the usual pate plan probably won't work, as the limited field of view will affect him as well. Imogen tries to send a message, but it doesn't work. FCG asks if they should walk around blindly on the island, or if they should ask the Changebringer. The party aren't sure if the Changebringer will be helpful based on the last couple of times they reached out to her. The party remember they were told about a massive tree that they should look for, but Lana says that was on a different island. They were sent to the one where Girona is on, not the tree. Imogen casts Fly and grabs Orm, and they start to fly up, as this is the only idea they have. Lana sends Pate up with them. They fly up 600 feet before the fog breaks, and they look down and they see an endless fog bank below them. There's an occasional break in the fog, but only blue ocean is found there in these breaks. There's not much daylight left, as it seems to be closer to nighttime. Orm looks for any sort of shadow that's moving within these clouds and fog. He looks around for anything different. He sees, a roughly mile away, a shadow weave through the clouds. Not the fog, but the clouds. He then sees it again, and it's definitely some large creature. They start to head back down. As they fly down, they see it again. They see it's easily 100 feet long, if not more. They can't tell how far away it is, however. Orm continues to look that way, so when they land, they know which way to go. They tell the party what they saw. Orm is looking inland towards the direction it was. He isn't sure exactly which direction it is, but Imogen recalls that the sun was setting, so she knows that it was that they are on the eastern side of the island, and the creature was northward. Ashton thinks they should rest soon, as they didn't take a rest after the fight last episode. The party question where they should rest. Orm wonders if the creatures he saw in the trees were threatening or not, but he isn't too sure. FCG says they need to pick a direction and go. Imogen says they should go around the edge of the island. It might be the safest idea, because that way things can only come at them from the forest side. They start heading northward. Imogen is guiding the trek forward. She takes them across the black, jagged rock of the cliffside. Eventually, the light begins to fade from the day, as it's getting a lot darker. They see a bunch of lights pop up in the forest near them. Lana sends out an infestation of fire bugs herself, but this makes the lights inside the woods scatter. Ashton says they're very visible right now. Fern casts Pass Without a Trace to make that less true. And they start to stealth around the path they were walking on before, and they all roll really well, as they normally do with Pass Without a Trace. They notice the lights begin to distance themselves from the party as they start to hide a bit. The party start going more inland. The lights around them all have a fog light look to them. Orm can hear tiny beating wings as one flies near, and he rolls a perception check of 24. He sees a tiny amphibious humanoid looking creature with toad-like skin. He informs the others of what he sees. They all then hear some sort of low growl or maybe some sort of impact off in the distance. They aren't quite sure. Lana tries to figure out how far away it was. FCG asks Fern how they should handle themselves here. She says to take it slow. Lana couldn't quite pinpoint how far away the sound was. Fern says it's probably more frightened of them. Ashton disagrees adamantly. Imogen is looking for a good place to rest. FCG is looking for trails. Doesn't have to be human trails. Chetney suggests going to the shore to look for Girona as she was the shore shrew. Lana pulls out Pate and tells Pate to stay 150 feet ahead of the party and to be quiet while doing it. She throws him off and he vanishes ahead. Lana then grabs FCG to be their guide as they walk. Pate doesn't really see anything. At this point, there's no light of day. It is now pitch black all around them. Imogen sends out some dancing lights ahead of the party, but she makes them look like the lights they've been seeing throughout the woods. Ashton isn't sure that's a great idea. It might be a dead giveaway that something's nearby. Only Laudna and Chetney have dark vision, so they kind of need some sort of light, but they choose to lead now, as they are the only ones who can see properly. Laudna specifically is looking for spider webs. I don't know why you'd want to look for spider webs. It's a fucking terrible idea. Laudna rolls perception. She rolls decent perception. She doesn't see any spiders. Thank fuck. They eventually come across a divot that appears to be a very large footprint. It's about 7 feet from end to end. It's not human. It's very thin and stretched and has webbed feet. A dinosaur, maybe? Hopefully a dinosaur. Chetney uses one of his hemocraft abilities to get the history of this footprint. He gets the feeling that many innocent creatures have died there, or have met their end here on this island, not due to hate or malice, but due to something needing to eat. FCG asks if they should go elsewhere before resting, as this is probably a dangerous spot if some creature like this is roaming. The party then find another footprint, almost like something landed here, as there doesn't appear to be a stride. They look up and see broken branches in the trees. Chetney suggests resting, as they need to rest if they're going to fight something. The party question where. The area doesn't have any massive trees or caves they can hide in. They think about using the hole, but there's a bunch of dead bodies in there, so it might smell, and they'll have to get rid of those bodies somehow. And they also need a flat surface to place it. Pate, meanwhile, seeing a bunch of different colored lights and tries to figure out exactly what it is. The party wonder if they should rest at the beach, but it would be difficult to get down there right now, especially in the dark. They hear the rumble again, the same loud growl they heard before. They've been walking inland for a while, and it will take some time to get back to the cliff and the beach. They choose to stay here, and Fern has an idea. She casts plant growth, and other fallen trees burst open and vines come out, and she creates a plant tent using this. Chetney is going to keep watch first, as he has dark vision. Perception 16. He hears the rumble every 15 to 20 minutes. He sees some of these tiny little toad people fairy things look at him and the tent, but once they clock each other, the fairies begin to fly off. I call them fairies just to make it simpler, because toad fairy human things is not easy. So for the rest of this, I'm just going to call them fairies. Nothing much beyond that happens on his watch. Lana and Pate are next. He asks if he can talk again, as he was told to be quiet. She says yes, but he has to be quiet. He says he can't get much quieter than this. She didn't build him that way. Lana rolls a 17 perception check. She hears the rumble sounds as well, about the same time period between each one. She tries to figure out what it is, but with a nature check of 5, she can't quite tell. Lana sees some of these glowing fairies watching her as well from behind the trees. She sits back and lays really still. She watches some move together, and one of them gets pushed forward as if it is being told to investigate. It then slowly flies up to her and lands on her. As it lands, it sort of loses its glow. It has very long, thin arms and very thick legs, and it has a very long face. It's very much a lizard with wings. It has cloudy yellow eyes and a zebra pattern across it, and it's also teal. It looks at Laudna intensely, but she doesn't move, and it just chooses to fly off. After her watch is over, FCG takes the last watch. Pate stays with him. A 14 perception check, as FCG has disadvantage on the check. FCG can also see these fairies flying around. As they keep looking for fairies, FCG can see about 30 of them. FCG casts Speak with Animals. They ask if they can understand them and if they can talk. One flies up and then grabs onto their head. It seems comfortable. FCG asks if it knows where other people are. It doesn't seem to understand. And then it starts making a clicking sound, and a bunch of other ones behind begin to make a clicking sound. It's almost like that's how they communicate. FCG asks to point where other people are. It points to everywhere. FCG asks for where the rumble sound is coming from, and it points in the direction of which it's coming from, so it does mildly understand. FCG then somehow makes it laugh, and a bunch more laugh behind him. FCG tries to feed it, but doesn't have any food, so he tries to steal from Chetney, but Chetney notices and wakes up and scares the fairy away. FCG tells Chetney to go back to sleep and then takes some meat off him. FCG calls one of them back over and hands the food to one of them. It slowly flies away with it as it's very heavy. At this point, the sun begins to barely rise. FCG casts Detect Thoughts, and they feel about 40 minds all around them. FCG feels excitement, curiosity, and protective worry. FCG reaches their hand out and says that they won't hurt them. One of these fairies land on their hand, and they cast tongues on it. FCG asks if the fairy can talk. It asks what FCG is, and then it asks if it can give, if FCG can give it food, as he gave food to another one. FCG says he'll get him some, and he gets more from Chetney. Chetney doesn't wake up this time. FCG asks for a name from the fairy, but it doesn't have one, so he starts calling it Me. FCG asks what the rumble sound is. Me says it's a spray cannon. Many holes in the island take water in from the outside, and it eventually builds pressure up and blows the water out. It's very dangerous in there. FCG asks if there are any villages around. They say there are many small villages for their people, their little fairy people. FCG asks if they can go there. Me says no, they don't want to bring the smelly one around, and the smelly one will probably find them if they go with them. The smelly one is the big one, as they keep calling it. FCG asks if they have a way to hide their smell, because the big one can smell. The fairy wipes the teal color off them a little bit, and it's some sort of cover or thing they put on them to cover their smell. FCG asks for some. The fairy flies off for a second and then returns, and then shits in FCG's hand. The teal is their shit. FCG asks if there's any people-sized structure here. Me says no, there isn't. FCG asks if there's anyone else here. The fairy says there is Taurus. Taurus protects them sometimes from the smelly one. They can summon her with a big fire. When the one fairy says fire, all the other ones surrounding get very excited. FCG says they can make a big fire for them, but they need to wait for their friends to wake up. FCG is going to wake up the party and warns the fairy not to get scared. FCG wakes up Orm first and says that they have friends now. One lands on Orm's chest, and FCG begins to wake up the rest and introduces the party to the creatures. A bunch of these fairies fill into the tent. The one FCG has been talking to says hello to the party. Imogen tries to talk to one in their head with her mind powers, but freaks it out, but it seems to understand. Ashton says this is either a very good idea or a very bad idea. FCG informs them of what they've learned about Taurus and the smelly one. They ask what it looks like, and Me just says it's very large and it's able to change its color. FCG says a big light will summon Taurus, but Me, the fairy, says that FCG promised a big fire, which excites some of the other fairies around them. He will show the party a safe place to make one. They race off, and about 100 more of these fairies emerge from the forest. Imogen asks if, in Orm's head, if he's worried they're just going to push them off a cliff. Orm wasn't worried about that until now. The party follow the blue teal lights through the forest and through the fog, and eventually come to a massive rock cliff, or moss-covered cliff. The smell of the ocean becomes a lot stronger here. Once they climb to the top of it, they reach a 60-foot plateau. Up here, there seems to be an old weathered campsite, and there's a tent, some woodwork, furniture, and charcoal. Orm and Chetney investigated to figure out how long it's been here. Orm rolls a 9, Chetney rolls a 24, and uses his Hemocraft ability and to see the history of this thing. He sees a crimson splash and friends throwing friends in front of the others, trying to stay alive. They see a very large creature that's mildly pink attacking, and then is pulled out of the vision. Ashton thinks this is a very bad idea. He's trying to trust what he's been told, but this feels bad. A fairy lands on FCG. FCG casts tongues again. It's me. He asks if they're going to make a fire now. Ashton says they should hide after they do so Taurus doesn't think that they're the ones attacking the fairies. They think they need a way to let Taurus know that they are friendly. FCG tells them that the poop from the fairies is what masks their smell, and that might be enough to sort of tell Taurus that they're on the same side. Fern asks if this fire is just going to summon the creature, or Me just says they just want to see a fire. Imogen insight checks this and gets a whisper. Fern summons Mister, which excites some of the fairies. The party wonder what the poo smells like. Apparently, it's the lavender smell they've been smelling on this island since they got there. Fern casts produce flames, and it completely intoxicates the fairies. She kills the flame, and a bunch of them ask for her to bring it back, but she says that they need to poo on them first. I can't believe I just said that. Me tells the others that they require a rain party. The fairies fly around the party and they begin to poo. And they get pooed on quite a lot. The party is covered decently well by their lavender smelling poo. I guess if you're getting covered in poo, it might as well smell like lavender, huh? Fern then produces flame again, and the fairies lock onto it. They are very intoxicated by it. The party collects some wood. Fern thinks it's best for Laudna to light the fire, as this will be practice for her. The party makes a wood stack, and as the sun comes up, the fog pulls back a bit. The party back up. There's about 300 of these fairies now flying around, gathered, excited for this fire. Laudna casts Fireball on the wood stack, and it creates a very massive wood pyre. The flames reach about 25 feet high. Orm and Chetney look around. Chetney with 11, and 26 from Orm. They see the fairies are locked on to this fire, watching it very intently. It's like they're enchanted. Orm sees something where Chetney is looking, but Chetney doesn't notice. It's almost like the rocks just moved. Orm tells the others. Chetney hears the scraping sound of claws against stone. He sees a hulking, multi-legged creature on the rock near him. It looks like the creature he saw in his vision. He makes a noise and it turns toward him, and the color changes from the multicolor it was to a white. It has no eyes and its teeth open wide and moves toward Chetney. Chetney makes a stealth check of 21, but it snaps at Chetney anyway, and the creature crits on Chetney. Chetney takes 62 points of damage as the jaws snap around him. He's able to pull himself out of the mouth. The party all hear it. Orm sees it, and now it's time to roll initiative. Initiative rolls are Orm with a 19, Imogen with an 18, Chetney with an 18, FCG with a 9, Laudna with a 9, Ashton with an 8, and Fern with a 5. Orm is up. He just watched Chetney get very fucked up. He runs and leaps off the rock towards Chetney. During the leap, he lands hard, taking 12 damage of his own. Orm then dashes. He's now 10 feet from Chetney. Orm uses his bonus action to pull himself closer to the creature using Seedling, and then he baits and switches with Chetney, giving Chetney 5 more AC for the duration of the bait and switch. Imogen is up. Imogen summons a Ryloran. Imogen then quicken spells and casts Mind Sliver. The creature fails and takes 11 damage. It now has a penalty on its next saving throw of 1d4. The Ryolan then casts Mind Spike, and it hits for 9 damage. It then tries to cast it again, but misses on the second. Chetney is up. He throws a Blood Curse of Agony on the monster. Chetney then dashes towards the Ryolan. The monster is up. It attacks Orm, missing the first attack, misses the second, but then hits the last one. and deals 22 damage to Orm, and it moves toward Chetney a little bit. It doesn't leave Orm's range. The monster takes 5 damage from the blood curse that Chetney just put on it because it multi-attacked. FCG is up. They cast Compulsion on the monster to move it elsewhere. It fails its save, and on its next turn, it must move where FCG pointed. FCG then moves towards Chetney to try to heal him next turn. Laudna is up. She hexes the monster and runs behind a rock. She then begins to send Pate towards the monster, but he doesn't quite make it yet. Laudna then sends Eldritch Blast towards it, and she hits both of them for 14 damage and 12 damage respectively. Ashen is up. They rage and rainbow sparks start flying. They dash towards the creature and bark at it as they can't attack now because they dashed. Fern is up. She casts Scorching Ray. She hits 2 and gets some bonus damage from Mister for 16 damage total with these 2 Scorching Rays hitting. Mister then Flaming Seeds but misses. The party hear another loud thud and growl off in the distance. The fairies look around and start to pay attention to what's happening instead of the fire. There seems to be a bigger fish. There's always a bigger fish. Orm is up. He could tell about how far away that loud sound was. It was about 600 feet away. Orm stabs the monster near him but misses the first stab and then successfully hits the second one. He makes it a goading attack. It fails and does 16 damage. Imogen is up. She casts Lightning Bolt on it. It fails its save for 31 damage. The Ryolan is up. It then casts Mind Spike twice. Critting on the first one and failing the second one. The crit deals 11 damage. Chetney is up and transforms. He then runs towards FCG and hides behind a rock. The monster is compelled, but it attacks Orm first. The bite hits, and the first claw misses, but the second claw crits. But Laudna Silvery barbs it, so now it's no longer a crit. Orm takes 30 damage from the bite and 25 from the claw. Orm is now fucked up. The monster then moves between 2 rocks and leaves both Orm's and Ashen's range, so they get attacks of opportunity. Fun note, I don't think that's how that works. I'm pretty sure that's technically considered forced movement, but it's not being like pushed, it's just being told to walk there. So I'm curious what other people think about this, because just on a first glance, that seems like forced movement, which wouldn't provoke an opportunity attack. But I'm curious what other people think, because I don't disagree that it's not being like forced, it's just walking there. So I don't know how I quite feel about it yet. But very interesting, just the discussion. Ashen misses and Orm hits for 9 damage. The monster then shrugs off the compulsion spell. FCG is up. FCG casts Healing Word on Orm and heals for 12 damage as Orm is the one closer to the fight. FCG then shoots a bolt at the creature but misses again. That bolt is the single most worthless thing I think I've ever seen in a D&D game. It has never hit. Not once. Laudna is up. Laudna looks for where the growl came from earlier. She doesn't see anything, but she knows in which direction it was. She tells Pate to hold on to the monster. She then casts Shack and Grasp through Pate for 13 damage. She then moves over and quicken spells and stabs her fingers into the dirt and casts Infestation on the monster. It fails its save and it takes 3 damage. It then has to move a random direction due to the smell. Ashen re-rages and grabs Orm, and then they run away from the creature. And Ashen shoves Orm into an alcove into one of the rocks they found and then begins to guard him. Fern then casts Scorching Ray and misses all 3 of the Scorching Rays, which I've never seen that happen. That is madness. Mister then shoots a Flaming Seed and fucking hits for 10 damage. Crazy how Scorching Ray missed, but Mister didn't. It's the odd versus last time. They hear the growl again, and suddenly the sky is much darker, and they look up, and there is something that is falling down toward the ground, and then suddenly something crashes and hits the ground, slams onto the battlefield. Laudna, Imogen, Fern, and FCG all take 1 damage from the debris. They can see a massive jet black frog-like monster. Its mouth opens up and growls again. The mouth is glowing, and there seems to be some sort of lanterns hanging inside of it, and there almost seems to be like a home in there. Orm is up. He moves past Ashen and cuts the air at the lizard monster. He hits with the first attack and deals 19 damage and uses goading on it. He then hits again for 10 more. He action surges for 10 more damage and then misses the fourth attack. Imogen is up, and she can see it has the same feet from the footprint they saw earlier. Imogen says in its head, "We were sent by Keyleth," and asks if it is Taurus. It gives her a comforting feeling. Imogen tells the others to that it's here to help and to all take cover. Chetney is up and takes cover. The lizard monster begins to flee and runs off the map a little bit. Laudna tells Pate to let go of it. Pate thanks her for that, as he was just doing what he was told, and he's very specific. Laudna then takes cover herself. FCG heals Chetney for 10. Fern hides behind a rock. Uriel takes cover as well. The lizard fairies are all flying around the head of this massive toad. The toad takes a huge leap and lands right behind the lizard and flips it up into the air. The lizard vanishes into the mist, or into the fog, and the party hear a distant splash. The toad eventually comes back to the party and sits down. The party slowly poke their heads out from behind the rocks. Imogen says hi from Kiki to the toad. The toad puts its head down and opens its mouth. Inside, they see basically the interior of a log cabin inside this toad. Sitting in a chair inside of it is a hunched female turtle, a Golopa in this region. I just know it as tortoise or turtle from the D&D game, but Matt seems to like to change all the names. She stands and looks at the party. She says good morning to the party and questions who Kiki is, and Orem says the Tempest. She steps out and smiles. She says they hear at the word of a trusted friend, so they are trusted friends as well. The toad, or frog, is Taurus, her friend and guardian, and also they have an arrangement for her to live inside of him, I see. Ashton asks if she's seen the change in the world. Girona, that's the tortoise, or turtle, says it's hard to miss. Ashton introduces the party and themselves. He tells her that he is a member of the Hishari people and says they're looking for a tree. Gianna says there are many trees and they should talk inside. Gianna says they look like they went through a tough fight with the lizard monster. The child of Esquilia, the serpent that protects the islands. Imogen asks about the fairies. Imogen asks about the fairies. They are the Dulapas. These names, man. She can see that they have the shit on the party from them. Orm asks about the creatures in the clouds. They are the cloud jaws. They are why skyships don't come to the shattered teeth. It's actually very curious about that myself. Why don't people just explore it that? But that's a good reason. Imogen tells her that they're looking for a tree. She says this is a heavier conversation than expected. It's one that they need tea for, and she begins to make a sitting circle out of all the chairs that she has in the area, or in the house. Imogen cleans everyone off a bit, as they are all covered in shit still, and they don't want to be. Fern asks if everything inside Taurus hurts him. Gianna says no, it actually keeps him warm, mainly the fire. She says she was not the first to live in him. There have been many before. She's just made the space her own. The party see most of the stuff in here is from crashed ships. Imogen hands Gianna a mug from the Taste of Taldore, which she absolutely loves. She passes out tea to everybody, and then she pours her own into the mug. She says Keyleth is an impressive woman, and Giorna's word helped her in the past. She assumes that Keyleth sent the party here for the same thing. The party asks how she met Keyleth. Giorna says Keyleth found her. She must have heard of her somehow. Laudna asks how Giorna became a grief counselor. She says she has her own life experience and has seen many things of her own, and she's also a very good listener. FCG asks if she goes to all of the islands. Giorna tells them that there's 43 islands, so that's quite a difficult task. Even with her age, she's about 120 years old. It's still difficult for her to go around to all these places. She actually says that in the shattered teeth, the spirits track time differently. It's probably closer to her age being about 400 years old. Ashton asks if she can sense the spirits. She says that anyone really can and isn't quite sure what Ashton means. Ashton says that they have Titan blood in them. Girona says that's very unique and apologizes, saying that she doesn't really know much about the Hishari people. And then asks if they're here for the Tree of Atrophy. The party say yes. She asks why. Ashton says the world is changing and they need to find what they need and what their life means. He was told that he could find something here. If Ventrevere took the sorrow and loss that was caused from the calamity and took root on that island here in the Shattered Teeth, when one takes purpose tied to the land, they become a tree. It's rare, and it happened here. Girona learned how to deal with their own grief from talking to that tree. Maybe they can find what they seek there. FCG wonders how they talk to the tree. Do they need to bring it some sort of offering? No, they don't need to bring it anything. If they have grief, it will help, but it's honest, and not everyone can handle that. She asks if they know how to get there. No, they don't. They ask if Taurus can take them there. Absolutely not. Taurus is not a great swimmer and cannot jump that far. She says it's tricky to find the islands as they move. Imogen asks how she tracks it. Girona says that the spirits guide her. She gets a pile of junk out from somewhere in the Toad and pulls out a map. It's not a full map, but part of one. It's about 12 years old, and the island they're looking for is on this map. She doesn't have a boat for them, however. They can try to fix one up. There's many around, and there's many trees around that they can use. Chetney gets very excited by this. FCG says they can just teleport there. Chetney says it's been a long while since he's fixed up a boat, so he wants to do that. He'll let them know how long it'll take once he sees the boat and sees how extensive the repairs need to be. They ask why the islands move. Girona says that the nature of the destruction of Dominus left behind a churning elemental energy. No one really knows why it happened this way, but it did. Chetney asks if there's anyone they need to talk to before talking to the tree. Girona tells them that the ascended host is on the same island. They have a settlement on Calutha. These names, I'm going to lose my mind. There is a settlement on Calutha with the tree. She says to be open and be respectful with them, and they should expect honesty back. Imogen asks if there's anything here from that island. Girona doesn't have anything from that island. It would have helped teleport there. Maybe Girona can describe it. There's lots of trees and 3 big mountains. It's not very helpful. Girona asks if their teleportation isn't safe. The party say no, it can be kind of dangerous. Girona says they can make a boat, or they can wait for the Wanderman Trust boats to come by. But that could take some time. Weeks, maybe. The journey should only take a few days by boat. She says the North Inlet is a good place to wait for a ship to go by. If they pay the right amount, the Wanderman will take them anywhere they need to go, but they shouldn't flash out too much money, as they could end up at the bottom of the sea. There is a more immediate option, however, but it's very dangerous. Girona grabs a brass compass, and she says to the party that they seem capable. She says this is the lost compass of the dread Captain Novos. Captains, or pirate ship captains, or just boat captains in general, keep a collection of compasses to keep track of many places. Captain Novos was a pirate that attacked the host, the Osmond host on this island, and was eventually ambushed, and he made a dark deal and now sails the seas as a ghost ship. This, by the way, freaked Travis the hell out. Obviously, he's got some information from his time as forward. She says to place the compass in the water, and the ghost ship will try to come and claim it. It's dangerous, as they'll have to fight the ghost crew. Maybe they'll like Laudna, and maybe they'll just take them along for a bit. Orm asks about the odds of teleportation. Imogen says that they didn't want to teleport here in the first place, as it's very dangerous to teleport at all right now. Chetney looks at the compass and sees that it's history, using his hemocraft again. He sees ships and cannon fire in the shadows off in the distance. A dwarf is shouting to the sky and makes a deal with them. As a bullet hits his head, he then hits the ground. Blood begins to pour out. He looks up toward the skies and smiles. Smile creeps across his face, and that's where the vision ends. FCG says there's a 25% chance to teleport there successfully, which is fucking terrible odds. They need to not take that. They like the ghost ship idea better, as do I. That sounds badass. Chenny says, at worst, they work on the ghost ship. Maybe they can ask what they want and sort of talk to them instead of fighting them. Chenny asks if Girona has talked to to the captain of the ship. She says no. She got it from someone else who felt chased and gave it to her to relieve that feeling. Orm asks if anyone has come across the ship and has survived. The party all say that the person who has the compass was likely one of them who did. Lana asks what the tree would say to someone about their death if they've already died. Girona says it's more about telling you the end of your path. She warns to be wary of the questions they ask, as the answers may not be what they want to hear. Guess it's ghost ship time. Ashton is on board with the idea. Ashton asks about the Titans that died here during the calamity or on Dominos. There were two. Ashton asked for their names. Raushan, the Emperor of Fire, and Kamort, the Empress of Earth. Girona says they have a dangerous journey ahead of them. She works with herbal remedies and gets them some jars and puts them in a care package for them. There seems to be 2 healing potions, a bottle of slick shimmer oil, which makes it harder for them to get hit, and a bottle of cleansing flame, which is something you can throw at somebody and it'll burn them a little bit. FCG gives her some cookies. FCG relates to Girona as they deal with therapy, but they don't feel like they've helped anyone. They haven't lived a person's life yet, so they can't really relate to people's problems. Girona asks if this is true. Ashton says there is some truth to that. Imogen says that they feel the same emotions that everyone else feels. FCG says they just don't have the life experience, so they don't know what to say like Girona does. Girona grabs FCG and looks into their eyes. They see a welcoming and forgiving look, and says, within them they carry deep grief. She tells them not to think they are incapable of helping others, but to also let others help them. Ashton isn't the only person that is seeking the tree. FCG questions needing help, and then nervously says okay. Girona invites FCG back because they will need to talk. FCG asks if it's like a session and then agrees to it. Ashton is happy that someone finally got through to FCG. Girona says sometimes the closer you are, the harder it is to hear. Girona says now that they've seen her home, hopefully it'll be easier for them to teleport here if needed. She wishes them luck and says that she's bad at saying goodbyes, but the party say it's more like a see you later kind of thing. Fern takes out some salt and pepper shakers that she got from the Twilight Museum heist and gives it to Girona. Girona is very grateful. Girona and Tauros will take the party to the shore. Girona shows them handles that they should all hold on to, but Chetney doesn't grab one. Everyone else does. Girona tells Tauros to go to the north shore. Tauros jumps, and they all feel a ton of gravity. And then suddenly they feel 0 gravity as if they're falling. And then they feel more gravity, and then 0 gravity. And they feel this 3 times until it eventually stops. Some of the furniture inside is broken. Girona has a ring that can fix some of these things, so it's not a big deal. Girona says we're here and adjusts ourselves a little bit, as even she gets shaken up by this jumping still. She says they'll stay behind the tree line and will help if they need to. Girona says good luck and then taps the floor, and Tauros opens his mouth. They hear the sounds of the beach, and then everyone hops out, except Ashton. Ashton asks how to deal with grief if they don't know what's been taken from them. Girona says not to focus on the loss, but to focus on what they've gained. Ashton thinks they'll see how broken they are once they meet the tree. Girona says she's surrounded by broken things all the time. Everything can be mended. Ashton wonders if that's true. He thanks her for the FCG advice and help, and then heads out. and walks the party towards the beach. This is where the session ends. And there you have it, episode 71 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. I enjoyed this one. I liked the fight. I liked that it wasn't like a super long fight, and it wasn't like, it could be dangerous, as they kind of got caught off guard by it, but it was still fun to enjoy. What was funny about it was Matt didn't quite have the mini, but eventually it clearly came in, the one that he was looking for, because they used a cup, like a Beauregard mug, and then eventually when they showed like some of the closer up shots of the battlefield and stuff, the Toad mini was there, which I thought was really funny and really cool. So yeah, it's a shame, but that's how regular ass folk have to deal with something sometimes when it comes to D&D, because sometimes they don't have the mini for the things they want. But anyway, overall, very fun episode. I'm very excited to explore more of the Shattered Teeth. Once Travis heard the number 43 islands, I think he planned out 43 sessions in his own head of what they're going to do on each one of them. So I'm very excited to see what is in front of us for the Shattered Teeth. Super excited for the ship fight by the sounds of things. Mighty Nine is my favorite, so this gives me some callbacks to them with being on the seas a lot. So very excited for that. Anyway, that's been episode 71. I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I choose to make next. Until then, peace.